The world is shifting. Are you? What we're looking at right now is a big change in what we had seen in the previous years. Your life is going to be upended. You are not going to be in the same position today as you will be in the next few years. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to show you all the information you need to know. I'm going to talk about what's happening in China. I'm going to look at the BRICS. I'm going to explain it all right here and now. Welcome, truth seekers. You've landed in the right place. I want to bring you what others literally they are not allowed to do, and I'm going to take that risk anyway. Join the nearly 300,000 other people. Just click that subscribe and the notification bell so that we can conquer this together. Speaking of which, I want to talk about what's happening inside of Qatar as it relates to China. What am I talking about? Let's go. Here we have it. Qatar ready to ink a new 27-year gas deal with China. The deal comes as China seeks to reduce its reliance on natural gas imports from its frenemy, the United States. Of course, China is doing less and less business with the United States. They've been going to Brazil. Did you know that during the whole tit for tat, all the tariffs, all that back and forth, that was going on, and then eventually the so-called trade agreement was signed in between the US and China. That time frame there, China said, we are going to buy more soybeans from the United States. We're going to buy more of this. We're going to buy more of that. And it was celebrated. Oh, it was so fantastic. Guess what China did? They not only didn't meet their objectives of what they said they would buy, but they actually at that same moment went to Brazil and said, hey, can we buy a very large amount of soybeans from you? I mean, they made it very clear what was going on. They're going to tell you one thing and they're going to do another because they have their interests. They know what they've got to do. They are making it happen. And the United States is playing around apparently, okay? I'm looking at this and they are not doing the right moves, in my opinion. That's the way I'm seeing it. However, I'm seeing the rest of the world, basically from the Middle East out to the East, all of these countries are saying, you know what? I'm sick and tired of the US bullying us. I'm sick and tired of the US dollar and the SWIFT system and how when they change their interest rate, we get choked. I'm tired of it all. So let's get together. And they might be enemies and they might hate each other and they might not be too friendly historically, but they say, fine, let's do business, at least for now. It's like they don't want to, but they have to. There's a line about that, a saying, the enemy of my friend is my enemy, or you can let me know in the comments below. But you know what I'm saying. Here we go. New oil and gas agreements expand China's influence in Saudi Arabia. One again and again and again. Same info. A slew of new commitments last week from Saudi Arabia to China go into development of natural gas resources. Closer cooperation between Aramco and China will mean Saudi Arabia investing heavily in the build-out of a large integrated downstream business across the country. These two countries are now linked. You've got to realize how big that is because they want to do business outside of the US dollar. Big, big, big. I don't know how else to say it. Huge, gigantic, ginormous, enormous, whatever you want to use, okay? Argentina started filling its new natural gas pipeline on Tuesday, making a big infrastructure feat and political victory that stands to save the country billions from energy imports amid a severe dollar shortage. So like I'm saying here, where there's clearly a problem with when you're having a weak currency, you've got your own problems, but you've got to do business in the US dollar. It just doesn't work well. It hurts the country. And so they're like, what do we do? How do we balance it? How many do we get rid of our US dollar reserves? Do we utilize that maybe temporarily? But what are we going to do here? And so you could see a lot of these countries, they're buying gold because they know it's stable, it's steady, and all countries will accept that gold. At the same time, they're basically saying, we're going to, instead of doing business in that US dollar, let's do it in Chinese currency. Well, why would they do that? The Chinese currencies, it's not open. There's so many problems with it. It's weak. Why? Why would they do that? Number one, in many cases, they don't have another choice. But in other cases, they're saying, we're just going to be basically shifting this back and forth. You get what I have, you get it what I have, so on, back and forth. So they know it's not necessarily going to be for all their trade, but they're opening up. These countries are doing that, and I'm seeing that right now with commodities big time. Let's move into the next aspect. Right here we have a more convincing explanation talking about oil basically, and what's been happening with why the price is where it is. And at the time of this recording, who knows when you're seeing this, but right now I'll say that Brent and let's say WTI is at $75 a barrel. Okay, so just to give you an idea. Supply though, the supply side of the equation, the past 2 years of high prices have incentivized production outside of OPEC, which is now coming online. Oil is gushing from the Atlantic Basin through a combination of conventional wells in Brazil and Guyana, and shale and tar sands production, America, Argentina, and Canada. Norway is pumping more too. JP Morgan estimates that non-OPEC output will rise by 2 million barrels a day this year. All right. At the same time, you've got Russia that apparently is not actually reducing their production as they say that they were supposed to do. We don't really know, who knows, all these things, but that's the thing. So there is more oil coming online. That's potentially, creating an issue if there's not enough demand. Because if the economy's slowing down, now we got way too much going online, and we will see what happens. Okay, right now, $75 a barrel, that's pretty much where it was before. So we'll see, though, in the second half of 2023. Europe's energy security is still vulnerable, even though it has higher gas stockpiles for the upcoming winter than a year ago. If you remember what happened with Europe, they were not prepared. The whole Russia situation, they're completely 100% reliant on Russia. And then they say, we're going to cut Russia off. I mean, they just strangled their own people by doing that so quickly. I understand why they did it. I understand. But what I'm saying is, when you made that price multiply in some cases by 5 times in a short period of time, what did you do to people? They turned their heaters off. They struggled. They were struggling. People died because they froze to death. I mean, that's not a way to handle this policy. That's not a solution. You should have been preparing 5 years before that to just in case something like this ever happened. But no, of course not. Of course not. I mean, that's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The leaders of these countries should be ashamed of themselves by not taking care of the people. China is now importing more Russian oil than ever before, and Europe has almost entirely stopped buying crude from Moscow. So, I mean, I'm sure, by the way, there's a lot of pipelines that go in that direction, out of Russia, and they come out into Europe. I know that they want to be selling that, especially Nord Stream 2 never even got used. They want to be selling all this stuff, oil, gas, but here's the situation. Okay, but if not, they're just going to sell it to India, they're going to sell it to China, they're going to sell it to anybody who's willing to buy it. They want to do so, though, at a higher price, let me tell you. But China, Russia, you see the connection here, you see the growth that's clearly happening. Much will depend, this is talking about what's happening with, the expansion of the economy and commodities. Much will depend on China's economic performance in the second half of this year and the effectiveness of the country's recently announced stimulus measures, and on the ability of the US and Europe to avoid an economic slowdown amid interest rate hikes. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but anyway, I'm just showing you the fact that what happens with the economy will have its toll on oil particularly, but at the same time, just the economy is really looking pretty weak overall. So we have to realize when you've got too many people that can't spend money, they're all the way up to their heads in debt, that is difficult then to get the economic engine moving, okay? Premium surges, premium of Oman to Dubai shoots up as Asian buying gets active. United Arab Emirates Saudi Arabia, they're doing a lot of business with China. And China's becoming a very good partner with these countries here. So like I'm saying, it's like the Middle East and onward east, they are just doing more business than ever before. And they like their business together, usually, it seems, based on what I've noted. So that's going to be a big change because they're all eventually going to do business outside of the US dollar. Think about the implications of that and your reliance on the US dollar as an individual. Okay, keep that in mind. Mid-East buyers in $20 billion deal rush for plastics and metals. There's just a lot happening. I'm just trying to show you that. And the Middle East is becoming a really growing economy overall. Here we have it. Texas Power Grid urges consumers to limit their electricity use as demand soars. I think what's going to happen, they'll probably shut people's thermostats down as they did before. But you could see it here. You got to get your reliance up and running. I mean, you got to be self-reliant. You got to have a garden. You got to have some level of food growth. You got to know your farmers if that's what it takes. And then you've got to have your additional income outside of whatever you are. So if you are in the UK, make some income in the US. If you're in the US, make some income in UK or Canada or whatever it is, okay? Because you want that diversification. I'm going to tell you right now, if you want a side hustle, if you want to make some money and you want to be able to work together, you and I, in this video here, it's a private video. If you want to check it out, it's just a simple side hustle. It's an idea that I had. I wanted to share it with you. So click it and I will see you there.